much footage on doing the housing and the bearing fits on this, but I was in school doing industrial mechanics, so I just did them on a lathe there. So that's what I'm doing right now, is just boring the inside of these housings. And then on the outside, I just trued it up, made it look better, and took that all the way down. So I just weld little flats on these so that I can drill into, tap, and push in or thread in some grease nipples. This is my column that's going to hold my my shaft with my bearings, seals, and all that stuff in there. I'm going to have a grease collar in here, just separate the bearings from the seals, and I want to be able to, this is upside down, so I want to be able to take a screw out of here, drain any water if water gets in there, and then pump more grease in it until grease comes out, put my screw back in, and I'm good to go. Got one on the very back, where there'll be a set of seals and bearings. And then the very front, same idea. So this is a machine screw. Now I got the diameter to be about 150 thou. Somewhere around there. 150 thou. It has a 32 teeth per inch. Subtract your major diameter, or subtract your teeth per inch from your major diameter. And that's going to give your hole size to drill. I did the math here. So I got 150 thou minus 1 over 32, which is 1 over n. And this is a decimal form of 132. Subtract it, we have about 119 thou we want to drill. And that comes out to about 7.64. So I found a 7/64 drill bit. I tested it, works pretty good. So that's what we're gonna do now.
As you can see, I lost some footage on where I cut out and welded on that skag on my bearing housing.
There. So I don't want to screw that in too tight. This is aluminum and that will strip. So what I think we're going to do is take that out. I'm going to put some kind of sealant on it, maybe gasket maker or silicone. And I might put a rubber gasket as a little washer, just to help if I have one that's small. This column machined in so far. We're gonna have a rubber seal, double lip seal here. I'm gonna shove that in first. It's gonna go to here. Then I have this spacer that I machined out in the past video. And this is gonna go right dead center of where the drain is and my fill. And this is just to keep the next thing, the bearing, is just to locate everything. So the bearing doesn't move in if there's a little bit of vibration. It's not going to move past and block this off. And my screws kind of come in, so it'll grip this, hold that in there, and grease will be able to push all the way around this and into all those holes I got drilled in there. And then of course I'm going to have another seal on the other side to close everything up. And then very last after that, I'll have my my Delrin, or is it Acetal Polymer on the end. That is going to be to keep mainly heavy dirt out of it, and I don't think it's going to keep much water out, but it's going to also serve as a thrust bearing. So it's like a flange type bearing. That's going to go there. So these should help keep water out. This should help keep a lot of water out. I don't think it's going to help that much, but it's going to definitely keep sand and grit out of this. And these are sealed bearings, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually pop them off so I can actually grease it. So this is a seal I'm putting in. It's for an 1 5/8 bore and a 3/4 inch shaft for it. I don't know if you can see these numbers. 19.05, 41.28. The number is 110058. This is my grease collar. Put some grease on that. These bearings are 1630 RLD pier. So I'm taking the seals out of these. So I want to be able to grease them through these grease knives. And lastly, we're going to have another seal going down. That's going to enclose everything. And I want to wait until I get my shaft in to put my my Delrin thrust bearing in. That's going to go right here. And actually, I'm gonna double seal this. I'm gonna put one the opposite way to that, just to make sure I don't want water getting in. So for this side, it's going to be a seal. There's going to be my grease ring spacer, and then bearing. And I'm not going to put a seal on the outside because I'm just going to keep the seal on one side of the bearing.
My shaft that I'm going to be threading to put on my propeller. It's a hydraulic rod. So it's a chrome, induction hardened chrome, so it's extremely hard. So what I'm doing here is I'm just annealing it, letting it cool, and then I'm able to thread it. You see in the next clip here. It was a night and day difference. You could barely make a scratch on it, and after annealing, it was machinable. Here I had to remove the bearing. It was hard to get the shaft in with the bearing already in, so I removed the bearing, put the shaft in, and then had to heat the housing back up and tap my bearing in.